Welcome to my channel Starlight Sci-Fi Stories. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The human transport vessel was never meant to impress anyone. It was small, narrow, and built with function over beauty. Its hull bore the marks of many repairs, some done properly, others clearly done in a hurry. The engines hummed with a steady, reliable sound, not powerful but stubborn. Compared to the massive alien ships drifting beside it, the vessel looked like a tool that had refused to break long after it should have been replaced. Marcus Reed stood inside the negotiation chamber and felt the familiar pressure of being underestimated. The room itself was not large. It was long and narrow, with smooth walls that pulsed faintly with alien energy. The floor vibrated gently as the ship passed through folded space. 4 seats surrounded a low table. 3 of them were already occupied by alien delegates, their bodies arranged carefully, their posture rigid with status and intent. Marcus checked his wrist console, not because he needed information, but because standing still felt worse. He noted without surprise that there was exactly 1 seat left. It was barely wide enough for 1 person. The chamber door slid open again without sound. Queen Nyra entered. There was no announcement, no guard, no display of power, and yet the entire room shifted the moment she crossed the threshold. Conversation stopped. Even the ship seemed to quiet itself, as if aware that something important had arrived. She was tall, composed, and almost human at first glance. Her face was calm, her expression unreadable. Only her long ears, sweeping back in elegant arcs, marked her as something other. They moved slightly as she studied the room, the seats, and finally Marcus. There was nowhere else to sit. Marcus reacted before protocol could catch up. He stood quickly, hitting his knee against the table and immediately regretting it. "Your Majesty," he said, gesturing awkwardly, "please, I can stand." Queen Nyra tilted her head. One ear angled forward, the other back. Curiosity, not irritation. "If you stand," she said calmly, "the gravity balance of the chamber will shift by 0.7%. The ship's artificial intelligence will interrupt us with a corrective lecture lasting approximately 12 minutes. As if offended by the delay, a soft voice echoed from the ceiling. "This statement is statistically accurate." Marcus sat down. Queen Nyra took the remaining seat. Or rather, she took half of it. The space between them vanished. Their arms rested close enough that Marcus could feel warmth through layers of fabric. He stared straight ahead at a blinking indicator light on the wall and decided it was now the most important thing in the universe. The meeting began. Trade routes were discussed, energy tariffs, shared access to a wormhole that technically belonged to no one and therefore belonged to everyone who argued loudly enough. Marcus spoke only when needed, offering clarification, translating human intent into language the others could accept. Queen Nyra listened. Her face remained calm, but her ears told another story. They flicked with interest, flattened slightly at arrogance, lifted just enough at unexpected honesty. Marcus noticed. He tried not to. The ship shuddered. It was not violent. No alarm sounded. No lights flashed. Just a sudden sideways pull as the vessel passed through unstable space, the kind engineers called mostly harmless. Marcus reacted without thinking. Training took over, muscle memory. He shifted his weight and reached out to brace himself. His hand touched Queen Nyra's hip. The universe stopped. Queen Nyra froze completely, her posture locked, her breath paused, even her ears went rigid, pointing straight back in perfect stillness. Marcus felt his entire body go cold. He pulled his hand back instantly, as if burned. "Your Majesty, I'm sorry." Turbulence. The ship stabilized. Conversations resumed around them, louder than before, as if sound itself could erase the moment. Queen Nyra remained still for another long second. Then she inhaled slowly and nodded once. "It is acceptable," she said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. Marcus stared at the table. The blinking indicator light continued its judgment. The meeting ended shortly after. Chairs slid back. Delegates rose. Formal gestures were exchanged. Marcus stood carefully this time, determined not to injure himself or diplomacy. "Advisor Reed," Queen Nyra said. "Yes, Your Majesty." "You will accompany me to the auxiliary corridor." "This is not a request." Marcus blinked. "Of course." The corridor was only slightly wider than the chamber. Soft lights curved along the walls. Through a transparent panel, distorted stars smeared across the void as the ship moved through folded space. Queen Nyra stopped suddenly. Marcus nearly collided with her back but caught himself in time, hands held firmly at his sides. "For the record," she said without turning, "the turbulence was not your fault." Marcus nodded at her back. "Excellent. I was prepared to blame the ship, the galaxy, or destiny, in that order." One of her ears flicked. She turned to face him. Up close, the almost human illusion faded. Her eyes were sharp, observant, unsettled. "You withdrew your hand immediately," she said. "Yes," Marcus replied. "I am very proud of that." "That is not your species' usual response." "No," Marcus admitted. "We're bad at impulse control. I once grabbed a plasma coil that was on fire." "That explains your medical record." "You read my medical record." "As a precaution," she said, "and because humans list poor decision-making under stress as a common trait." Marcus smiled despite himself. "We're very honest." Silence stretched between them, not awkward, charged. A hovering light drifted toward them. "Reminder," the ship's AI announced cheerfully. "Emotional irregularities detected. Would either party like a calming beverage or a strategic lie?" "Leave," Queen Nyra said. The light dimmed and floated away. They resumed walking, slower now. "You are wondering," Queen Nyra said, "why I reacted as I did." "With respect," Marcus replied, "I'm wondering many things. That one is winning." She stopped beside a recessed alcove designed for privacy. "I have ruled for 16 orbital cycles," she said. "I have endured threats, betrayals, and assassination attempts involving at least 3 insect species." "That's impressive," Marcus said carefully. "No one has touched me without intent," she continued. "Without calculation. What happened in that chamber was neither." Marcus nodded, mostly panic. "Yes," she said, "and yet my reaction was not." She turned away, looking at the warped stars. "It seems," she said quietly, "that I am out of practice with surprise." Marcus leaned against the wall. "If it helps, I'm surprised by most things. Chairs, weather, my reflection." A small sound escaped her, not laughter but close. The ship shuddered again, gently. Marcus stayed still. Queen Nyra noticed. Another silence followed, thinner now, balanced. "Advisor Reed," she said, "there will be additional consultations. I'll try to keep my hands to myself." Her ears tilted slightly. The next cycle began with pressure. More delegations arrived. Larger ships docked. Corridors filled with quiet tension and loud expectations. Political gravity returned, heavy and unavoidable. Marcus adjusted his jacket as he walked toward the main chamber. He told himself not to notice how often Queen Nyra's path crossed his. He failed. The new chamber was larger, designed to enforce distance. A long curved table separated power from petition. Queen Nyra sat at its center, posture flawless, authority absolute. Her ears were composed, unreadable. The talks were tense. Accusations flew, threats hid behind polite language. One delegate accused another of chronological trespass, which Marcus learned was both an insult and a crime. Voices rose, translation fields lagged. The ship's AI quietly requested permission to sedate someone. Queen Naira raised one hand. Silence fell. She dismantled arguments with calm logic, redirected hostility, reduced egos without raising her voice. Marcus watched impressed. Then briefly, her gaze flicked toward him. Not for approval. For grounding. During a recess, Marcus escaped to a side corridor and negotiated with a beverage unit for something resembling coffee. It failed, but tried. Queen Naira appeared beside him. It is becoming noticeable, she said quietly. Marcus sighed. I was hopping for another day. My council is concerned, she continued. They believe your influence is unbalancing. I haven't even told my best jokes. This is not humor, she said, then paused, entirely. She turned to face him. They fear I am changing. Marcus met her eyes. Are you? Her ears shifted, uncertain. I am remembering, she said, what it is to react without rehearsing. That's not weakness, Marcus said. That's being alive. Spoken like someone who does not rule millions, she replied gently. An aide appeared, rigid with urgency. Your Majesty, the Keller delegation demands immediate clarification. Queen Naira straightened. The Queen returned in full. Of course. She left. The next meeting was worse. Threats sharpened, alliances strained. One faction suggested removing humans entirely from the process. Queen Naira spoke in her native language, ancient and sharp. The room fell silent. Later, much later, Marcus was summoned again. This time, to a quiet observation node deep within the ship. Queen Naira stood alone, staring at a dying star. The council will demand distance, she said, from you. Marcus nodded slowly. I expected that. They will call it necessity. They always do. She turned to face him. I do not regret noticing, she said, but I regret the cost. Marcus smiled softly. That might be the most royal sentence I've ever heard. The ship hummed around them. I don't know where this goes, Marcus said. Neither do I, she replied. That may be the risk. They stood there, suspended between duty and possibility as the universe continued on, indifferent but changed. The atmosphere aboard the vessel changed before any announcement confirmed it. Marcus Reed felt it in the corridors. Voices were quieter, steps were measured, delegates moved with purpose instead of curiosity. The ship, once a place of motion and negotiation, now felt like a pressure chamber slowly tightening. Politics had returned. More ships had docked overnight. Massive vessels from ancient civilizations drifted beside the human transport like mountains parking next to a tool shed. Their hulls gleamed with polished metal and ceremonial markings. Power made visible. Marcus adjusted his jacket as he walked toward the main assembly hall. He reminded himself again that his role was advisory. He was not here to command fleets or shape empires. He was here to listen. The chamber was full. Representatives from multiple systems filled the curved seating. Their species varied wildly, but their expressions shared a common trait: expectation. Something important was going to happen. Everyone could feel it. Queen Naira sat at the center. She wore full regalia now. Her crown rested perfectly in place. Her posture was flawless. Her ears were angled back in controlled neutrality. If Marcus had not known her better, he might have believed nothing had changed. The session began with formal statements, carefully worded concerns, polite disagreements sharpened by translation delays. Then came the real issue. A delegate from the Keller system rose. We must address the destabilizing factor, the delegate said, human involvement. A ripple passed through the chamber. Marcus did not move. The humans, the delegate continued, lack the historical depth to understand the consequences of emotional governance. Their influence introduces unpredictability. Queen Naira listened without interruption. Another delegate stood. We propose limiting human participation to observer status only. Agreement followed, not unanimous but strong. Marcus noticed something then. No one looked at him. They were not afraid of him. They were afraid of the effect humans had. Queen Nyra raised her hand. Silence fell. The human delegation was invited, she said calmly, because stability has failed us. A murmur spread. Our systems are rigid, she continued, our traditions absolute, and yet conflict persists. She turned slightly, her gaze sweeping the chamber. The human advisor did not introduce chaos, he introduced pause. The Keller delegate stiffened. Pause is indecision. No, Queen Nyra replied, pause is restraint. She gestured toward the table. The humans possess limited strength, limited fleets, limited territory, yet they survive among powers far older than themselves. Marcus felt the weight of attention shift. They do not dominate, she said, they adapt. One delegate scoffed, adaptation is not authority. Queen Nyra's eyes hardened. Authority without adaptation is collapse. The chamber fell quiet again. The vote was postponed. Not canceled, not decided. Delayed. Marcus exhaled slowly. That delay saved everything. But it came at a cost. Later that cycle, Marcus received the message he had expected. Advisor Reed, the consul said gently, you are requested in private conference. He found Queen Nyra in a smaller chamber, one without witnesses. She stood near the viewport, hands clasped behind her back. They will push harder, she said without turning. My counsel believes distance is now necessary. Marcus nodded. They always do. They will demand your reassignment. He considered that, if it helps the talks. I will comply. She turned then, surprised. You would leave, she said, not a question. Yes, Marcus replied simply. Influence only matters if it's chosen, not forced. Her ears shifted, unsettled. This will weaken your position, she said. Maybe, he agreed, but it will strengthen yours. Silence filled the space between them. You are aware, she said slowly, that humans are not expected to surrender leverage voluntarily. Marcus smiled faintly. That's why it works. She studied him, truly studied him, as if recalculating something long assumed. I will inform the council, she said. They will approve. Good, Marcus replied. She hesitated. Know this, she added quietly, this choice will not be forgotten. The next assembly was shorter. Queen Nyra announced the temporary withdrawal of the human advisor from active consultation. The chamber reacted with visible relief. Tension eased. The council nodded in approval. Stability restored. On the surface, Marcus packed quietly. No speeches, no protests. He said his goodbyes to the human delegation with calm acceptance. As he prepared to board the shuttle, his console chimed once more. Advisor Reed, it said, final audience requested. The departure antechamber was formal but not cold, a space meant for endings. Queen Nyra stood waiting. You are leaving with your delegation, she said. Yes. The agreements are ratified, she continued. Trade routes secured, corridor access stabilized. Fewer explosions than expected, Marcus said. Significantly fewer, she agreed. They stood across from each other, the space between them measured and deliberate. You were correct, she said. The council approved your reassignment. Marcus inclined his head. Then this is goodbye. Not entirely, she replied. He looked up. I have requested, she continued carefully, that you remain designated as a future liaison. Marcus raised an eyebrow, despite concerns about my destabilizing influence. Precisely because of it. She allowed herself the smallest smile. The council accepted, she added, After I presented historical precedent and a hypothetical resignation. Marcus blinked. You didn't. I did, she said calmly, hypothetically. He laughed, surprised by the sound. Queen Naira watched it with open curiosity. Her ears lifted slightly before settling again. When the moment came, Marcus stepped forward just enough to acknowledge the path they had shared. He bowed, not deeply, not formally. Honestly, thank you, he said, for trusting me. She inclined her head in return. Thank you, she replied, for reminding me that restraint is not absence. The boarding announcement echoed softly. Time resumed its duties. As Marcus turned to leave, Queen Naira spoke once more. Advisor Reed. He looked back. The next time turbulence occurs, she said, composed but warm, you may brace yourself. He smiled. I'll be careful where I put my hands. Her ears tilted forward unmistakably. See that you are. The hatch closed behind him. The human shuttle pulled away moments later, engines humming steadily. Marcus took his seat and watched the royal vessel recede against the stars. He felt no regret. He had not gained power. He had not lost position. He had learned the weight of restraint. Far behind him, Queen Naira returned to her duties. Her rule remained intact, her authority unquestioned. But now it was threaded with something new. Not weakness. Possibility. The universe did not notice the change, but it would feel it. Slowly. And